Cuomo delivered a speech at Al Sharpton's National Action Network headquarters in Harlem. His opponent, Zoran Mamdani, spoke to voters on the Upper West Side and the Bronx. He later attended a rally with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez at the Manhattan venue Terminal 5. Around 3,000 volunteers attended the event. Mamdani is polling in second place. He and City Controller Brad Lander are hoping to cut into Cuomo's lead after both turned in strong debate performances. Another poll is set to drop this week.
That was WNYC's Elizabeth Kim.
WNYC receives support from Supermicro and NVIDIA, accelerating AI with a wide range of AI servers, networking, and the NVIDIA AI Enterprise software platform. Supermicro is committed to driving AI infrastructure breakthroughs with rack-scale innovations.
Most of us learn how to parent along the way, making mistakes all the time.
You have this idea that you're generations apart, and you know you don't have a lot of time left, so you do as much as you can.
I'm Brian Dories from Theater of War Productions. Join me for a reading and a conversation about fatherhood, mortality, and family.
I loved my dad dearly, but we had a difficult relationship.
Tomorrow at 8 p.m. on WNYC.
Marketplace Morning Report is coming up next, and then in 10 minutes at 9 o'clock, it's the BBC News Hour. Let's check in and see what they're working on. What's up, London?
Good morning, WNYC. I'm Rebecca Kesby, and on today's News Hour, new civilian casualties recorded by Israel and Iran as strikes continue. We'll hear from both countries. What is Israel's grand strategy, and how far will the US be involved? And as G7 countries meet, is diplomacy dead? That's BBC News Hour coming up at 9 on WNYC.
.63 degrees, cloudy skies as you start the day. There's a slight chance of rain today and most of the week. It'll be mostly cloudy throughout your Monday with highs in the upper 60s. Tuesday will be much like today with highs around 73. You're listening to WNYC at 8:51.
Getting U.S. citizenship as an immigrant is usually a long and difficult process, unless, of course, you can just buy it.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Yubico, makers of the YubiKey, which stops phishing and hacking attempts and protects the personal and business applications people rely on. Learn more at yubico.com.
From Marketplace, I'm Sabri Benishore, in for David Brancaccio. First, shares in Nippon Steel closed up in Tokyo today. That is after Nippon's deal to buy U.S. steel finally crossed the finish line. There are some unusual aspects to the arrangement, though. Marketplace's Nancy Marshall-Genzer joins us to elaborate. Hi, Nancy.
Good morning.
So the two companies announced that President Trump has approved this partnership. There's something kind of unique about it, though. This something called a golden share. What is that?
Yeah, this is something the Trump administration insisted upon. The golden share gives this administration and future presidents a stake in the merged companies and considerable power. In a post on X, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick says Nippon can't transfer production or jobs outside the U.S. or close or idle plants longer than normal without the president's permission. Lutnick says there are other protections around things like sourcing of raw materials and workers' salaries.
Now, speaking of workers, it seems the United Steelworkers Union is not too happy about all of this. How are they responding?
Yeah, the union posted a letter yesterday about the merger. During the presidential campaign, President Trump said he would block the deal. And the letter says the union is disappointed that Trump, quote, reversed course. The letter also points out that its current contract expires in September of next year. And the union is, quote, prepared to engage the new owners.
Okay. Marketplace's Nancy Marshall-Genzer, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
A website is now live for what President Trump calls a gold card. That's where you can pay for a fast lane to U.S. legal residence and citizenship. The price tag, just $5 million. Aside from that, we don't have a ton of details on the program. Marketplace's Savannah Peters has more.
The Trump administration says its gold card would replace the existing EB-5 visa program, which offers green cards to foreigners who can prove they've made big investments in U.S. businesses that helped create jobs.
The gold card doesn't seem to have an investment component. It's just about paying money to the U.S. government.
Julia Gillette with the Migration Policy Institute says it's not yet clear President Trump has the legal authority to create a new visa category without Congress getting involved, or whether there's much demand.
Because you have to be really extraordinarily wealthy for this to be attractive.
Stan Voiger is with the American Enterprise Institute. He says most people with $5 million to throw around are doing pretty well in their own countries.
If you wanted to hit $10 billion in revenue a year, which is less than 1% of our budget deficit, you need 2,000 buyers per year.
I'm Savannah Peters for Marketplace.
President Trump has said 15,000 people have signed up for the gold card at trumpcard.gov. That does not mean 15,000 people have paid the $5 million, though. The website doesn't require proof of finances, but 15,000 are at least interested, according to the president. All right, let's do the numbers. Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ futures are all up in the 6 to 0.8% range, with Dow futures up 267 points. The 10-year Treasury yield is at 4.4%. The trade war between the U.S. and China, despite a truce, continues to show up in China's economic data. Factory production growth there hit a 6-month low last month. U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods are now 55%, by the way. That's with the truce. At the same time, shoppers inside China are doing better, much better than expected. Retail sales there were up 6.4% year over year.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Progressive Insurance with Snapshot. Learn more about Snapshot at Progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Snapshot not available in California or from all agents. And by Total Wine and More, helping shoppers love what they find this summer season at TotalWine.com. Drink responsibly. Be 21.
A Canadian shipbuilder wants to make ice-breaking ships in Texas. The company Davy Shipbuilding last week announced plans to invest $1 billion in this project. The icebreakers would be for the U.S. Coast Guard to use in the Arctic. The deal comes amid a bipartisan push to revive the domestic shipbuilding industry in the U.S. Reporter Daniel Ackerman has more on what it would actually take to do that.
There was a time when U.S. shipbuilding was the envy of the world.
During World War II, the U.S. had an extremely dominant shipbuilding industry in the sense that it built more ships than basically anyone else.
Brian Potter is a senior infrastructure fellow with the Institute for Progress, and he says after the war, the industry
kind of got dismantled. There was all sorts of emergency shipyards, and they all basically got closed down.
The Brooklyn Navy Yard is now full of waterfront offices and art galleries. Meanwhile, countries like China ramped up their shipbuilding, says Thomas McKenney, a naval architect at the University of Michigan.
They invested heavily in that. Now they are the largest shipbuilder in the world with almost, I think, around 60% of the market.
McKenney says with that economy of scale plus cheaper labor, Chinese builders can make ships at less than 1/5 the cost of U.S. builders.
So from a price competition perspective, no one is going to come to the U.S. to build a container ship or a bulk carrier.
Still, U.S. lawmakers want to boost shipbuilding for national security. A bill in Congress would offer tax breaks for investing in shipyards. But revitalizing the industry won't happen overnight. One challenge is the workforce.
It's hard to hire people.
Cynthia Cook is a senior fellow with the Center for Strategic and International Studies. She says many shipyards are in places with extreme weather or high cost of living.
So each location has its own challenges in terms of workforce issues.
One key to solving those issues, a guarantee that the government is going to need a lot of these ships.
We do need that constant demand signal. You're never going to be really efficient building one of anything.
Matthew Paxton is president of the Shipbuilders Council of America. He says shipbuilding is complex, so it helps when yards can lock in contracts for a series of vessels at once.
That's where we can get really efficient. We'll invest in our facilities. We'll invest in our workforce.
The good news, says Paxton, is that increased shipbuilding is a priority that's remained full steam ahead across presidential administrations. I'm Daniel Ackerman for Marketplace.
In New York, I'm Sabri Ben-Achour with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.